Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am with my friend Andrew Walker, Global Total Reward Leader at EY. How's it going, Andrew?
It's going great. Thanks, Ben. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you, man. It's good. Hey, where in the world are you right now?
I am sitting in Summit, New Jersey, which is a bedroom community of Manhattan. So I'm about 20 miles west of Manhattan.
Okay. And normally would you be commuting into Manhattan if we
Well,
weren't in the middle of a global pandemic, or what's that
yeah,
look like?
I've worked remotely for about 10 years. Before I joined EY, I worked for an Australian company, and my boss was in Australia, and there was no close office. So I went virtual then. When I joined EY about going on 6 years ago, I did commute every day for about a year. But in a global role, I was going into an office, sitting by myself all day on the phone, and then coming home again. And I thought, what's the point? So I do go in. I moved my office from New York City, Times Square, to Hoboken when we opened an office there. And it's a great place to go, but I was going there maybe twice a month. But I traveled a ton before the pandemic. So it didn't feel like it does now working remotely. It was more of, maybe on average of maybe half a week, I would be at home and then traveling somewhere for the rest.
I want to talk to you about work from home because it is changing the way our industry is, and it's changing the way the world works. I want to talk to you about a lot of things. I want to talk to you about global mobility. I want to talk to you about purpose. I want to talk to you about trends that you're seeing out there from a D&I and a sustainability standpoint. You're so well positioned to talk about all these things. But before we do that, real quick, I want to ask everybody out there watching, real quick, to leave a comment. Let me know who you are, where you are. Go ahead and check in. Also, I want to hear your questions for Andrew as well. Your questions are always better than my questions. That's what I always say. So go ahead and leave them out here. We got a few people checking in here right now. Hit that like button as well. Mike Quigley, good afternoon, everyone. What's up, Quigs? It's good to see you, buddy. Stacy Huff, hi, Ben and Andrew. Excited to hear what Andrew has to share. He has a great story. Awesome. No pressure, Andrew. Alan King, hi, Ben and Andrew. It's been a busy Monday. Looking forward to the show. Tuning in from Germany. Tim Quirk from Western New York. Doug Gallardo from New York. Andrew's one of the best. Look at that. Awesome.
Doug's one of the best. He's a good guy.
Little dose of affirmation on a Monday.
Oh, nice? It's very nice.
So before we get into all the trends and everything, because we're going to talk a lot about that, we're also going to answer all the questions from the audience as well. I want to ask you, how did you get started in global mobility? What was your first gig in the biz?
Yeah, I was about 8 and I woke up one day and I said, I want to be a mobility professional.
I almost spit my coffee all over the computer, Andrew.
No, did anybody decide on this? I think we all found, although now kids are going to school for it. So pretty soon people will say they woke up and realized this was their calling. But I wanted a summer job for my resume. I was looking for an internship. And we had I was living in Norwalk, Connecticut, and there was an office park not too far from my house. And I literally went door to door, knocking on every door, asking if they were hiring summer interns. And the only company doing it in the entire office park was Merrill Lynch Relocation Management. So I was an intern, and then they hired me after college. I did that for 2 summers and over all my holidays. And then I got a job after college working for them.
That's incredible. So you've done something that a lot of people have wanted to do, and it's pivot from the RMC and service provider side of the business into the corporate role. How did you do that, and what advice would you give other people that are looking to do the same thing?
Yeah. It was interesting because I didn't necessarily set out to go to the corporate side, but Merrill Lynch became Prudential Relocation while I was working there. And Prudential was setting up on-site facilities. And I was one of their first international relocation managers put on-site at a client. I went to JP Morgan in down on Wall Street. And they treated me like I was one of their own. I mean, I was actually doing a job of that previously had been done by a JP Morgan employee, and they trained me. They knew I didn't know anything about international mobility. I'd been doing domestic home sale before that. And so I just, for 2 years, I went into their office every day and felt over time more like a JP Morgan employee than a Prudential employee. So I realized actually I really like being on the inside, and got an opportunity to do that. My first job after Prudential was, I call it my first expat assignment. I moved from New York to Des Moines, Iowa.
And did you get cultural training for that?
No, it was phenomenal. It still is one of the highlights of my working career. And this was well over 20 years ago, probably more like 25 years ago now. And I still have, I was only there for 2 years, a little over 2 years. Some of my best friends are all still in Des Moines, and I go back there, not often enough, but regularly. Just phenomenal. I needed reverse culture shock training when I moved back to New York. That was pretty tough.
Yeah, no, seriously, that makes a lot. This is so interesting. Andrew, you have such a nuanced story. So what advice would you give to people, though, that are looking to make that jump? Because so many people, are looking for an opportunity right now. A lot of people have been displaced. A lot of people are pivoting in their careers. I talked to one very high-profile professional today that's pivoting, and they want to go into a corporate role. And it seems like those roles are harder and harder to get. It seems like they're fewer and further between. What advice would you give someone who was looking to go into the corporate side?
Oh, it's a great question, and I wish I had a really good, easy answer. But I think
it's tough, isn't it?
It is hard. And if you're on the service provider side, I would imagine the best way to go is either through some type of existing client relationship. Or I got lucky because I was at a training event. I was being trained on something called the Overseas Assignment Inventory, which was a suitability paper and pencil assessment that people would take to let them know if they were suitable for an assignment. And so I went in to get certified in doing this, and there were 3 other people in the course. 2 of them worked for the Prudential, the Principal Financial Group, the company I went to work for. In Iowa, we just hit it off, and they're like, "Oh, we need somebody to help us do what you do. Will you come out?" So I just got really lucky in making that connection. But I guess it's just taking advantage of the opportunities to talk to people who are on the sort of corporate side of the fence, in case they have a need or if they can share some of their own learnings. But like everything, it's about relationships and networks. I think from a skills preparation standpoint, though, I think it would be really good just to sort of start to appreciate, before you get to the corporate side, the pressures that a corporate program owner or an assignment manager are under, so you can sort of appreciate it from the other side of the fence.
What are some of give us an idea of, because some context there, if you don't mind, because I think there's a propensity for folks on the supplier side to say, "Oh, how hard could it be? I mean, we're over here handling all the, the way we're making the sausage over here, how hard can it be?" So help us understand, those of us who haven't, such as myself, who haven't sat in that seat, what are some of the pressures that maybe we're not privy to?
I think there is, mobility, we've heard this for decades. Mobility is always trying to get a seat at the table or retain their seat at the table. And there really is a lot of pressure to be relevant to the broader HR and business world inside these organizations. And we know we're relevant, we know we're important, but mobility is also not a core part of most HR offerings, right? Because in an organization, somebody who's working now I'm in reward, right? So I have to care about every single person that works for EY. When you're in mobility, obviously you care about the whole organization, but you're focusing on a percentage of that. Anywhere from, some organizations, it's 0.5% up to maybe 5% of the population. And so as a result, inherently, when you're dealing with a smaller subset, there's a perception that you're not making as big an impact. But really, you have to sort of I don't like to use the term justify your existence, but you have to demonstrate your value and find your moments to sort of interject. And I think the pandemic provided a really unique opportunity for a lot of the corporate program owners to sort of raise their profile or even change their profile. But that's part of it. And I think the other thing is there's always pressure. Either there's, as much as you'd like every single move to go flawlessly, inevitably there's something that doesn't go right, and depending on where that is in the in the population, that can create a lot of unpleasant visibility that you have to manage. So that doesn't actually, honestly, that doesn't happen often, but that's just another thing that, if you're a supplier, you get the client doing the hairdryer routine on you when something doesn't go right. But then
The
you can
hairdryer. It's about the hairdryer routine. I want to hear this analogy. What's the hairdryer routine?
That's so I was an expat in the UK and I picked that one up. So that's colloquialism, but that's when somebody's venting, blowing hot air at you because they're yelling so mad, right? So
okay.
I
thought it was they put the big dome over your head and turn it on so you can't hear anything that's happening.
Well, basically that just noise coming on you, right? So but I think it's the other thing too is that we have to be pretty commercially minded about our program. So how are we managing the costs? How are we demonstrating value? You have to be business savvy to constantly review your program, make sure it is relevant, it's meeting the needs of the business, and you have to pivot quickly. If there's a couple moments in my career where I realized the way we were doing it just didn't work anymore, and I kept fighting it, saying no, you have to do it the way we've always done it, and suddenly it would click, and I'd be realizing, wait, we do have to do something differently. So you have to be nimble as well. But I'm not, I've been on both sides of the fence, and I don't necessarily think one is harder than the other. They're just different.
Yeah, no, that's great insight, and I appreciate that. And I love when you talk about the pandemic and talking about how we need to pivot. And I want to go there, and I want to talk about all the ways the pandemic's made us pivot and really dig into that. But before I do, I want to go ahead and honor the people that have checked in right quick and give them a shout out. Also, if I call your name, I'd love a question. Let's see here. Farrell Elliott checking in from NorCal. Britt Bemis from B-Town. Where's B-Town? Is that
Boston, Beantown?
Well, Beantown I get, but B-Town, I know B more. All right, Boston, we'll give it to him. Boston. Britt Bemis Town. Hi, Ben and Andrew. Happy Monday. Greetings from Greater Boston. There we go. Leaves nothing to the imagination. Liz Martin, DJ Lizzie Beats in the house. What's up from Chicago? Tom Brune. Hello, Andrew from a now sunny snow is melting Ineo in Denver.
Oh, good. Glad that they got socked last week.
Yeah, seriously. Hey, Vinny. What up, Vinny? I think Vinny's. I'm trying to get Vinny to come on and give away some meat every week. I think a meat of the week. Vinny Valverde's meat of the week.
That would be great.
Yeah, stay tuned on that one. Mike Falia, what's up, Mike? Ben Shiner from London Town. What's going on? Mary Lee in Minnesota, trying to be spring.
Nice.
George Meyer checking in from NYC. Awesome. Hey, Elizabeth. Good to see you. Look at this. This is
fun.
Great, Heather.
It's really fun.
Yeah, this is great. See anybody want to give me a shout out? Just let me know. Heather Jameson, Global LT. Quaja, is that it? Opportunity to work with Andrew, and he's an inspiration.
That is too kind.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that cool? What's the best part? What's the best part of your job? Just out of curiosity. I like asking people this question. And it doesn't have to be Quaja just because he's here. It can be anything.
What is the best part of my job? Oh, God, that's a great question. I've never thought of it quite like that succinctly. But I love the fact in mobility, the best part of mobility is it requires such a breadth of skills that you're using all the time. Really technical, analytical, sort of number crunching, and then human relations. And there is no other, as far as I'm aware, there is no other function in HR that touches not just the employee, but their families, and getting to know them. And when I was in Iowa, we had a small mobility program. I drove an expat to the airport with his dog in the dog crate as they were moving out of the country. And I house sat for another expat. And so, that's the cool part, is you really get to know these people. And my team, the mobility team I managed until a week ago, they know their expats that they're working with so well. And I think that's the cool part. You really get close to the people you're supporting.
Well, you just teased a big change there, Andrew. Do you want to announce that change? I mean, you said the global mobility team you've been managing until a week ago. What's going on? We got some news hot off the press here?
Big news. So as you heard me say, I started in mobility 1987 as a college intern. And until last week, I've always worked in mobility. But for the last 3 years, I managed both total reward and mobility at EY. And my boss has been asking me for a while to, hand over the reins on the mobility side and focus on reward. We have a huge agenda, lots of work to do. And I finally agreed, the time is right. I have an amazing successor, Penny Angove. She's in Melbourne, Australia. So she's going to have some tough hours doing the job from there. But she's extraordinarily capable. And so I am... I'm going to be supporting the function, and I'll be working with Penny for a long time, but I'm not accountable for mobility as of last Monday.
Wow.
So I think it was about a year and a half ago, my boss first said, I need you to step out and really focus on reward. And
how did you take that, Andrew? How did you take that?
I was offended at first. I really was.
What did I do?
I've been doing this. This is who I am. It's my identity. But unfortunately, now being involved on the board of Worldwide ERC, I can stay very connected to the industry. I still care deeply about it. All of my friends are in mobility, so I still have that. But from a day-to-day standpoint, it's not my primary focus any longer.
Well, that just made me really sad, Andrew.
Well, I'm still going to be doing stuff. I'll be showing up at Worldwide ERC events, and so I've got that, at least for the next 2 years, pretty much.
Well, you mentioned Worldwide ERC a couple times, so let's talk about that. So help us understand. Give us some insight. Obviously, it's been a while since we were together at an in-person conference, right? Which makes us all super sad. It comes up at least once a week, right? Mm-hmm. But give us like kind of a preview or an idea of what the association is up to, what we can expect and be excited about in this year.
There's a lot. It's really cool, and it just sort of focusing on the value that our industry really is looking for, and so Worldwide ERC is sort of making a big pivot and going into, it's doing two things. It's sort of exploring what is the future of work. And they've just released some really interesting research on that. So you should go to the website and check it out. But we're also really sticking to the basics and ensuring that we can provide a voice for our whole industry and a shared voice and a sort of North Star. And it sounds, by some respects, it might sound presumptuous, maybe is a word to assume that you can be the voice of the industry, but it's not necessarily always having to come from Worldwide ERC, but ensuring that we collectively as an industry, as people working in this field who care deeply about it, have a shared resource for information and learning and collaborating. And I think certainly during the pandemic, and I was on a call with Lynn Shotwell not too long ago. We did a town hall. Lynn is the CEO of Worldwide ERC, and she's been in the role for about a year now. In fact, I think her anniversary is coming up here any day. We were talking about how during the pandemic, we didn't know what was going on. We'd have to find the people. We'd have to understand the implications of working outside of their normal work location, and how do you do that? And so there was a lot of people running around trying to find answers, and there were webinars every other day and articles, and that's useful. That's great, but you actually need to have somebody filtering through that and organizing it and say, here's the really important piece of information you need to bring back to your organization or your stakeholders. And so I think that's something that Worldwide ERC has stepped into and really embraced and made it easier to access, and people don't necessarily have to sort of worry about where's the next piece of information coming from. Really providing that one voice that we can all rely on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because you're right. I mean, there's content coming out of our ears, right? And it's really hard to say what's important, what's real, what do I need to be listening to and watching, because obviously time is limited. And so it makes a lot of sense for Worldwide ERC to kind of serve as the curator.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have to make the art in the museum. They just have to curate it and bring it all together. Right?
Yeah, and there are so many bright people that they don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just have to find the right curation is the perfect term for that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. We got a couple of questions here. Lynn Greenberg, Andrew Walker, how do you calculate and measure a successful post? I'm assuming you mean assignment, or do you mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Social media post?
Lynn is awesome. If you guys don't know Lynn, you should know Lynn. So I think, we used to talk about ROI, return on investment and measurement, as the holy grail, sort of elusive. It was out there. Nobody knew how to do it. And everybody was really fixated on some type of quantification of that. And there was a think tank in the UK that went away and built a model for it. And I attended a seminar where they unveiled it, and it was absolutely bewildering. And I think it would take anybody 2 weeks to actually work through the data to figure out, was there success on this assignment? And we've evolved from that, but I think you have to know what you're measuring to know if it was successful. So that's really the secret, is not what you do after. It's declaring up front what you want to get out of it. And so I don't think there's one calculus for what success looks like, but it's really driven by outcomes. And I talk a lot on my team about creating intentional outcomes. You want to do by design those things that the business need. You don't want to leave that to chance. So what does that mean? So understanding, why is the assignment happening? What is the business driver? What does the business need to have happen on that assignment before it's over to know that that outcome was met? What are the development opportunities for the assignee? So what kinds of skills do they need to develop? What kind of relationships should they have? What are they going to be ready to do next? And then also, even just be so brave as to say, we think at the end of this assignment, if you have these skills and experiences and develop these relationships, you'll be ready to do one of these other jobs at the end. So actually put something out there for the assignee to look for and to work towards. And then at the end of it, you can say, well, were they ready to do one of those jobs, and did they get that job? And thinking about the exit before you even start the assignment is something that I think we often forget to do.
Well, and I think I love what you're saying there. And I mean, do you actually stipulate, maybe the 3 objectives that are going to happen? And do you actually put on paper, if you will, the what the next role? I mean, that's like taking a very intentional talent development kind of approach to it, and
Absolutely.
being very strategic in it, which is so interesting, because we always complain that we're being pigeonholed into this tactical, reactive kind of mode. Here's the orders, move them. Here's the orders, move them.
Yep.
But I love what you're saying there, and it's so interesting. I mean, do you actually codify that and put that down?
Yes, yep. So it starts with a business case, and you're looking for the articulation of these goals and outcomes you want. And then you build in a plan to make sure that you're monitoring them. And I actually did this years ago at Reuters. We came up with a business case. It was for different reasons, but we realized there's tremendous value in ensuring that everybody was really clear on why this assignment was happening. But then you say that at the beginning, and then the assignee goes off and everybody forgets about these objectives. So what you need to do is build a framework to ensure that people are focusing on these things throughout the assignment. It's almost, you could do it in lots of different ways, but you could have a parallel performance review process, like a multi-year process that sits on top of the annual review process that's just for expats. So you're looking at, okay, this is a 3-year assignment. You're at the end of year 1. How are you tracking against these 3-year goals? What we're doing now, and this is just rolling out to all of our signees at EY, and I'm really excited about this, is we're calling it the mobility experience journey, or the me journey, and it has scheduled prompts that mobility is providing to the assignee, to their host manager, and to their home manager to make sure that this is visible throughout the assignment, that the assignee is not out of sight, out of mind, that there are people in the home country constantly reminded about what this person's doing, where they are in their readiness for the next job. And then that person at home can act as their talent agent, helping them find that next spot. And it might mean that, oh, the person has to move home a little bit earlier, or, well, the role's not quite ready, so let's extend the assignment or bring them home and have them sort of prep for this next role. But the point is, it's not the assignee 6 months before getting a reminder that, oh, my assignment's ending, I got to go out and find a job. These things have been happening, and that assignee can then go home. And this was something we saw at EY. Everybody loved their assignment, either because it was a great personal experience, or ideally because it was that, and it was transformative for their own career. But when we would ask people, well, why? They would say, it was just great. I really learned a lot. It was great. What I want to have happen, and the me journey is going to help this, is when they're back and they're successful, and we need them to talk about their experience to others, they're going to say, it was great because I learned this, I did that, I have this phenomenal network, I've grown, I've developed, and make it really clear to people so that it's not just, oh, you should go on assignment because you'll get a lot.
It was great because I enjoyed London or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right. That's so interesting because you're talking about articulating the business case, but now you're also helping your assignees articulate their me journey as well.
Yeah.
Because in lieu of ROI numbers and in lieu of quantitative, we have to help them be really good at the qualitative, right? Telling that story and oh, that's so fascinating. Oh, this is great. I love it. Thank you. That was so insightful. We've got another question from Tom Brun here. Go ahead and ask your questions if you're watching right now. It's a great time to ask some questions. Tom says, question, has EY completed any analysis around how the firm can use or monetize management consulting specific to remote work and or virtual assignment relocation policies?
So I would say the answer is yes. But the group that focuses on that monetization is our client-facing mobility team, People Advisory Services, and they're doing phenomenal work and helping our clients all the time sort of formulate their approach and their policies. So they are, and I'm sure they're starting to make some money off of it, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. But we do partner very closely with People Advisory Services, PAS, and we talk to our clients together about what we're doing. And we participated in a workshop several months back exploring sort of how we can innovate. And we did that arm in arm with the client and with the consulting side of our shop. So we like being involved like that.
Love it. You talk about how the business views the human capital and how they're deploying it and then how they're measuring it and all that. But I'm wondering, has the social contract or has the deal changed between companies and employees? Is that relationship fundamentally changed? I mean, I like to always remind people I'm a millennial, but I mean, we talk about generations, and 2 generations ago, the gig was to get on with a great company, work there 25, 30 years, get the Rolex, get the pension, and that was the gig.
Yeah.
But doesn't seem like that's the gig anymore. So
yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think again the pandemic is going to accelerate things that were in the works for a very long time. I've been hearing for well over a decade that the average time that a millennial, or the average number of jobs a millennial will have by the time they retire, is massive relative to a Gen Xer like me. That being said, I'm on my 7th employer since I graduated college. So I'm,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I know. But it's funny. But I'm in an organization. I'm now almost 6 years, and I'm still considered kind of a new guy after 6 years at EY. You can talk to people who've been here 20, 30. A friend of mine retired after 42 years not too long ago. So, yeah, so that's the exception, not the norm. And it's just, and I laugh that thinking if I'd come to EY 15 years ago, I may never have left. But that's not the question you're asking. The question is sort of the social contract. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very different. And I saw a stat. I read it just last week that something like in 2 years, 43% of all employees are going to be gig workers, which is substantially higher. I mean, sometimes the stuff I think people are just saying it to be provocative, but
that's a lot. 43% is half.
Yeah, exactly. But I was at an internal EY conference, and it was focusing on the future of work. And somebody stood up and said, there will be flying cars within United Arab Emirates in a year. I'm like, no. And then in less than a year, I saw a post that, yes, they were actually using flying sort of autonomous drones that people sit in UAE. So, I mean, this stuff is happening a lot faster than we think on all fronts, between technology and just new ways of working. And I think, we're seeing the flexibility that has been created through the pandemic. Leaders weren't prepared to give people the flexibility to work from home in most organizations. And now, out of necessity, they did, and they realize it's okay. Now, all working remotely is nobody's ideal, but at least it's okay. Well, we're not going to require, most organizations are saying this from what I understand, we're not going to require you to commute every day. Maybe you come in 2 days a week and you can work flexibly for the rest of the time. And I think that's cool. That's a really great innovation. But it also lets people realize that they can work differently, and maybe they do want to have even more freedom to have a gig type of a job.
What's working about working from home, and what's not working, do you think?
So, as I said, I've worked remotely for a long time. My office setup has been in place for 10 years now.
It looks great, by the way. I wanted to say that. It looks really, really, I said it looks great, by the way. I mean, it looks really optimized. It's very good.
All right. Well, I spend all day in here every day, so you got to like your environment. So yeah, well, I guess what I'm finding is even before, when I used to work remotely, you could still plan on your day starting at a time and reasonably ending at a time. And I don't know what it is about the pandemic, but calls are crazy. I mean, and it used to be, oh, we're trying to squeeze this one in. Can you do 6 o'clock in the morning? And now it's just, they just appear. And then, calls at like 10 o'clock at night and all day long. And I don't get that. I don't really understand why.
Is it because they're not in your time zone? And so it's just like, hey, we're on the other side of the world? Or is it just like 10 o'clock, here you go?
Largely the time zone issue, and people who work in global mobility will certainly understand that. But it just seems like there are so many more calls than ever before. And I was basically on paper having my job a week ago, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have all this real estate in my calendar. And last week was insane. So I don't really get it. I don't understand where is all this time coming from. So what's working is the flexibility side of it. And if I've got a call at 6 a.m. and my last one might finish tonight, I think my last call ends at 8. So that's a 14-hour day. Well, no, earlier today, I just unplugged for an hour and a half. Like, I'm putting in my time, I'm getting my work done. I just need to take a break. And that's the hard part of this, is people feel guilty. And hopefully by now, at this stage of the pandemic, everybody's over it. But you need to be able to give yourself the grace to check out and recharge and go to the gym or whatever.
But how is it possible, with technology making us all more efficient, that we're working longer hours? Shouldn't we be down to a 4-hour workday at this point with all the email automation? I mean, it used to be that we would write out letters by hand put them in envelopes, send them to each other, read them, and then go act on them, and
Yeah.
then send a letter back.
Hey,
I mean,
the
where'd
first
the
job,
time go?
I know. When I was an intern, there was one terminal in the middle of the room on a table. That was it. Nobody had a computer on their desk. I was typing equity statements, and I didn't know how to type, so I was doing this. And I got very good at that whiteout correction ribbon. But now, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. And I almost never have paper on my desk, which is, I used to have files, you'd have on your, like a file sorter on your desk, and it's just so different. And you'd think, it has made us so efficient. So why are we working so hard? It's a great question.
Well, now we're all content creators. Now we're all over here having to be like public speakers. It's like, well, I thought my job was as a actuary. I didn't know I had to be on camera all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
This is great. This is great. We got another question here from Elizabeth Soley over Jacob Street. What's up, Elizabeth? She says, "What's been the most challenging part of managing global mobility during the pandemic?"
So a lot of the unknown. What do you do? Like, where are your people? First of all, it was January last year where we had all these expats out on. They were traveling for Chinese New Year, and then the border shut. What do you do with them? So, and we had to think differently about managing our people. So that was a challenge, but it was also a great opportunity to get closer to our people. And as I referenced earlier, really sort of redefine our role in the organization. I think and I'm not alone in saying this. I've talked to a lot of people who had to counter the misperception by their organizations that, oh, borders are closed, you must be bored. You must not have enough to do because you can't move people. But we're supporting thousands of expats who are out and expats who are stuck, and then the business wringing their hands saying, when can we start moving people again? So we were busier than ever, but we just didn't have the data to show that we had moved X hundred of assignees during that period of time. So that was a particular challenge. Back to that sort of, program owners often feel like they have to justify their existence, and you never should have to justify your existence, but you have to find the data points that help people understand the story, what's really happening.
Well, and it goes back to the whole quantitative versus qualitative, right? I mean, we are in a business that does not offer the best, in my opinion, the best quantitative data, but people who are close to it can tell the stories and can relate it in a way. And I think that's like, Timmy, to your point, it's like, well, how many people did you move this year? Like 30, but does that mean we're not doing anything? Does that mean that we're not important in the business when you have things like Brexit that are happening? It's like, so, I mean, and I guess this is a kind of a follow-up question, but, we talked about, before seat at the table conundrum, right? Which plagues our industry. It's probably the most common, one of the most common complaints I hear from practitioners is, the seat at the table. How do I get more reach and relevance, in relationships within the organization? And does it feel like this year or the last 12 to 18 months, global mobility has had a rare spotlight put on it based on the confluence of crazy events between COVID and Brexit and, fill in the blank?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And is this our moment? Is this our moment,
well,
Andrew?
Yeah, I think it is our moment. And I think, and that is sort of one of the sad things about sort of heading off into the sunset in my mobility day job is, gosh, there's so much more that we can be doing. And we really are at a point where we're redefining what mobility is. And EY is really interesting because we know over 80% of our new joiners come because EY can offer an international experience. And that's a huge, we have 300,000 people here. So you're talking 50% is 150,000 people want to have some type of cross-border experience, and they're not all going to get it. So we had to learn a long time ago how to talk about cross-border experiences differently, but it was not driving those as, okay, let's work with the business to figure out how we can have more cross-border working. And for an organization like EY, there is, and our entity structures, it gets really complicated really fast, but there are ways you can do that. And so we're sort of working with the business to redefine what we call mobility and how we support it. And we're also at the same time looking at, okay, well, maybe the way we did mobility before isn't going to diminish, but we have to find new ways of supporting mobility that give more people access, because we can't just tell these 80+% of people who come, well, wait your turn, you'll get it someday. So we're doing the mobility team is doing some really cool work to find ways of supporting more cross-border experiences that are pretty easy to access and give more people more to do. So we also have HR business partners are a common phenomenon in HR departments. And we realized we weren't close enough to the business several years ago. And so we created a mobility business partner who is there to drive those strategic conversations with the business. So we didn't ask permission. We just banged on the door and said, we're here. And so I think there's opportunity for all of us in the whole industry to really think about, how do we think about mobility differently? What can we actually do to progress this? But back to your point, I know I'm sort of wandering here.
No, I love to bang on the door and let everybody know we're here. That's the best way to enter any party, in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's great. No, but real quick though, you talked to HR business partners. So can you clarify for those of us who don't know the difference between HR and HR business partners, or mobility and mobility business partners? What is that business partner?
Yeah. So an HR business partner is sort of, and this won't be the same across all, so forgive me if I say it in a way that doesn't, to the audience, that doesn't jive with what's going on in your organization. But I would say an HR business partner is really your generalist who's really helping the business think through all of their people strategy issues. And then on the mobility side, we have people who are not actually, they get involved in cases, but they're not doing case management. Their whole job is to really be embedded in the business to understand what are the business strategies that mobility can enable, what are the requirements that we need to then bring back into the mobility function to make sure that our programs and policies are evolving to reflect the evolving business needs. But they also work as portfolio managers. So if our service line has 1,000 expats out, who's paying attention to that? Do they know how many are going to be repatriating in the next 4 or 5 months? And what are the plans for that? And how do we know that all those things in that me journey that we want to have happen on assignment, how do we roll that up so we can have a holistic picture of what's happening? So that's what the mobility business partner, we call them account managers, they do in our organization.
That's so interesting to have internal account managers to really take care of your internal customers. I want to ask you about that though, since you do operate at a pretty strategic level. It's always interesting to ask these types of questions. But how are the needs of the business changing, and what is global mobility going to have to do to change with the business? Where's the puck moving? Help us understand what is our job going to look like in 5 to 10 years if we're successful.
I wish I really knew the answer with a lot of confidence, but I have
all right, I'm going to Total Rewards.
Yeah,
have a good one.
It's not my problem. No, back to the same thing, is that mobility is profoundly changed, and I'm convinced that mobility will come back, but it's not going to come back the way we knew it. There will be strategic assignments. The business needs that. There may be fewer developmental assignments because we've now seen you can do work across borders from anywhere. But certainly EY will continue to have developmental assignments. But I think it's just not going to be quite the same. There'll probably be overall fewer. I think one of the things that we've realized is we saved a lot of money by not putting people on airplanes and not supporting all the assignments we used to have. So I think the business is now going to look at this differently and say, okay, are we really getting that ROI, or what does that ROI need to be for us to entertain this? And again, because we know so many people come to EY for these experiences, we're not going to give up on that. We just have to find ways of doing it differently and with less expense. But also, one of the things we're looking at is how do you support virtual working from around the world, and charging your time in the right way that doesn't create a permanent establishment liability or trigger tax filing obligations all around the world. And these are the things that the mobility team is now working with the business on, so that we have a strong voice on, virtual working, remote working.
So much to consider, such a global program. I want to, we've got a lot of topics here we can go down, and yet you've also done this really amazing top 5 for me today, which I'm super thankful for. I want to do something we normally. I want to get started with our top 5 early. I'm going to also ask people out there, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button right now. Let everybody know that Andrew's here, because he's phenomenal. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them. We might have a chance to get to them. We're going to start this top 5 early. I want to hop into it because I think it's super meaty, and I think you bring a lot of good points here. So, Andrew, you down to do a little top 5?
Let's do it.
All right, let's roll. Stacey, you got it for us? All right, Andrew, what's your top 5 for us today?
The top 5 things I've learned in the pandemic, and all through
Nice.
sort of a mobility angle, more or less.
Nice. Awesome. Let's do it. Number 5.
So the future of worldwide ERC. So ERC was sort of by its own design getting involved in some disruption, and then the pandemic hit, and it was pretty brutal. And we had to make as a board, we had to work with the leadership of the organization, make some massive changes to ensure that we were going to survive. There's no way to sugarcoat that, but we've come through it in a way that makes me really excited, because we're going to bring our entire industry together. And really, one of the things that Lynn Shotwell talks about is, you go to a cocktail party and you tell somebody you work in mobility, and they're like, "What is that?" And so her ambition is, anybody who works in mobility can go to a cocktail party, say they work in mobility, and people will be really impressed and respect what we can do for organizations. I think that's awesome. So I think there's a lot happening in the organization that is the advocacy. Certification is going to be really much more significant and helpful. And looking to promote mobility outside of our tent, looking into the broader sort of HR and business arena to talk about what we do and the impact we make. So it's cool.
I love that.
Space.
I love that. It goes back to the power of storytelling and how we position ourselves, because to your point, before, we may touch 1% of the employee population, but we possess oftentimes so many more skill sets than anybody else in the HR team, and I don't know that we do ourselves justice. So that's awesome. That's great. Number 4.
Purpose. All right. So this is a big deal everywhere. We were hearing that the connection that people have to their organizations is the sense of purpose that the organization brings them, but also helping people find their own purpose. And I had the opportunity. This is the silver lining of the pandemic. As bad as it was, I wasn't getting on a plane every week, and I wasn't commuting all the time. When I was going into the office, and I didn't have the distractions even of, oh, where are we going this weekend? Going out of town. We're stuck at home. So I was really focused during the pandemic on my own personal purpose outside of work, and finding time to get involved in my community. And I even founded a nonprofit organization.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that, because that's super interesting to me.
Okay, cool. So, well, I could talk another hour on this, so I'll give you just the highest level. The organization is called 11+. So if you want to look at it, you spell out 11-plus.org. And it is 11+ is short for Elevate to Even Plus. And this organization raises money and then distributes it to nonprofit organizations so they can hire and pay summer interns. So I got a great start in this field because I had an internship and they hired me afterwards. I made connections, I learned, I grew. Well, we know that, and this is specifically for disadvantaged students, so students of color from low-income housing. And we know that I would even venture to say, nonprofits offer unpaid internships. And the kids that really need these internships can't afford to work for free. So we're saying we're going to level the playing field, provide access to these transformative work experiences, and give the kid a paycheck so that they can come away with it with really understanding what it means to go into work. Or we're going to be doing a hybrid this summer with kids working remotely, but they're going to come away with real valuable work experiences and a paycheck that they wouldn't have had before.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Hey, shout out to Sandra Clary for putting that comment in there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, look at that. Look at the community over here. That's awesome. So yeah, go hit that 11-plus.org. That's awesome, Andrew. How can we support? The community is extremely generous. We're very talented. We're somewhat bored. Put us to work, Andrew.
So,
how do we?
All right. So there is a page on the website that's asking for support. And there's two ways you can support, of course, money. So we still have a lot of fundraising to do to pay the first cadre of students. So we're starting small this year. This is our first year. We're going to have 10 students, and it costs a little over $5,000 per student for the summer. So we have to raise $50,000. We're tracking at about half of that. So there's a donate button on the website. And it's the thing I hate about doing this is having to ask for money, but we can't do it without support of people. But there's also, if you have time and an interest, there's a shopping list of things that we need help with. So check it out, and you can either send me an email or just contact us in the website and let me know if you want to help. We're doing it this year in New Jersey. New Jersey is one of the most segregated states in the country for Black kids. So they really need the help. It's not exclusive for Black kids, but it's for people of color. And in my community, we have a very large Hispanic population, and so we're going to host a number of kids in my own community here, but also in nearby Newark. And there's just a lot of work that needs to get done. So between donating money and donating time, we're gonna do this. And then the goal. One of my board members is Robert Horsley, who's a big name in mobility. Probably most of you would recognize that. And he's really been helpful trying to get people to pay attention to this. But he said, Andrew, I'm going to help you. You can do it in New Jersey this year, but you have to do it in California next year. So we have some pretty big ambition to spread this around.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Hey, everybody. If you go to the website 11-plus.org, 11plus.org, and donate right now, leave it in the comments. I will match your donations up to $1,000. Leave it in the comments right now. Take my money, please.
Drop the mic on that one.
Well, we'll see. I'm not dropping it until somebody else, donates. So somebody donate. Let's get this going. We got 7 minutes. Can we take all my $1,000 right now, please? Pretty please. Cherries on top. Let's do it. I'm gonna leave that up there just for now. No, that would be awesome. It would warm my heart to do so. Please go ahead and donate right now. Check it out. 11-plus.org.
Wow.
Right there. I didn't tell Andrew this is going to be a fundraiser, and I know you don't like asking for money. It's what I do or used to do for a living.
We need some karaoke now, Ben. We need some karaoke.
You want to close this out with living on a prayer? No? Okay, me either. All right, awesome. Let's go to hey, Stacy, can we throw that link into the banner on the bottom there just to let people know where they can donate so we can move on with our top 5 and see if we can't get some donations here? This is awesome. This is great.
This is amazing. Great.
Doug wants to know, great cause. Where was this when I was growing up? Paid my dues for no pay.
Yeah, I hear that.
Doug wants some inspirations on his free internships.
I couldn't have worked for free, and here I'm like a middle class white guy, and so this is a great leveler, I think.
All right, Sandra already donated. Sandra already donated $100, so that's $100 out of my pocket. So we're up to 200. Let's keep it going here. All right, let's go on to number 3.
All right, so number 3 is environmental sustainability. So I mentioned that PAS, our client-facing mobility group, invited the internal mobility people to a workshop with one of our clients, and it was on environmental sustainability. How do we make the mobility industry more sustainable? And I'm green. I've been carrying my reusable shopping bags to the supermarket for 10 years already. So I like to think I'm sort of built to think this way, but I really went into this thinking, what are we going to talk about for a whole day? And I was amazed by how many opportunities there are for all of us to do things differently to make a positive impact on the planet, reduce our footprint. So I think that's something I learned through the pandemic, and certainly encouraging a lot of organizations. And I think this is a theme. It's actually was repeated in the worldwide ERC research on remote working. This was one of the themes that CHROs are really focusing on. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Is there anything that sticks out to you about environmental right now? Like they're just like, man, that seems like low-hanging fruit, or man, that seems like a big problem that we need to just tackle.
Well, there are the sort of obvious ones, like the footprint created by shipping all your stuff. Now you shouldn't. You still need to ship.
See, is that me?
What's that? Did we lose Ben? I think we lost Ben. So I'll just keep talking here until Ben comes back to life.
I'm here. I'm here. Can you see me?
Okay. Yeah, you're moving now.
I'm moving. I'm sorry, but you were saying there's obvious ones like what?
So there, I mean, the things are like flights. So can you do your house hunting trip virtually? So VR is huge now. And there are organizations thinking about this, and there are actually providers who are already working in this space. So there it is. What is that? The Oculus Prime.
The Oculus, yeah.
So we need to be thinking about sort of how do we do things differently. But then there are ways of changing the assignee's mindset. So maybe you give them a premium to rent an electric vehicle or buy an electric vehicle on assignment, or select energy efficient housing, and have a tracker so they can keep track of how well they're doing against their own environmental goals. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it, and I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on that.
This is awesome. This is awesome. Speaking of scratching surfaces over here, so Sandra's in for 100. Elizabeth Soley from Jacob Street. What's up, Elizabeth? $50. It's awesome, Elizabeth. You're the best. Kathy Connolly. Kathy.
Wow, thanks, Kathy.
Coming in for $50. Match that as well. Pam Metzger coming in for 25. Awesome. That's fantastic. So 100 plus 50 plus 50 plus, what is that, 225? So we're up to 450 right now.
Holy cow.
Let's see what we can do.
Wow. What are you doing tomorrow, Ben?
I'm doing this every day.
I know you are. I would bump your guest. I forgot who's coming on tomorrow. Maybe we'll play.
Tesla Boone. Tesla Boone's great. Oh, wait, time out. We got this one. Pony up, Ben. Just donate $100.
That's amazing.
That's great. So what does that put us to? That puts us up to a collective 650 collective. Wow, nice, Tom. Good job, buddy. Let's keep it going. All right, number two.
Number two is D&I. So, I think most organizations have been paying attention to D&I. Coincidental, during the pandemic, we had the George Floyd issue and Black Lives Matter. And finally, I think and I really hope that this is very sustainable, but there's a lot of attention being paid right now on this. And I think in our own industry, we don't have nearly enough diversity of thought and perspective. And there is so much more we can be doing to be bringing more diverse people into our industry. And so I've been thinking a lot about it, as has Worldwide ERC. I think we have a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It's huge, and it's a huge passion of mine as well. I think we could do better with welcoming professionals into the business. I think we could do better from a procurement standpoint. I think we could do better, making pathways and recruiting people into the business through internships. You're talking going upstream with it.
Yeah.
There's so many things we can do. It's such a multi-layered problem, and it requires a lot of hard work. It's not just like a pencil whip a policy change and just, oh, it's in there now. It's hearts, minds. There's things over
Yeah.
time that need to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And there's so much evidence that shows that the greater the diversity, the greater the performance of the team.
Yeah, for
So there's
sure.
no dispute. We just have to do it.
On a lighter positive note here, Anka put another 25 in, so that's $50 cumulative. That brings it to 700.
Holy cow.
Kevin is in for $50.
Oh, Kevin.
Which
Hey,
is
cool.
another cumulative
He's an
100.
EY buddy of mine.
Yes, now we're up to 800 total right now. This is great. Sandra loves to spend my money. Yes, please do. That's what it's there for. We're just stewards of it. We don't own it. It's just passing by. That's it. All right, number one.
Community. So, we don't get together. We're really good now at Zooming, and that's fun. But it's made me realize how important it is for all of us to get together. And we had the Global Workforce Symposium, and it was all virtual. And it was a cool platform because you could have breakouts and you could talk to people in sidebar chats. And it just really reinforced the need to stay connected. But I cannot wait to get back to an in-person event. And ERC is really trying hard to have in the fall the next GWS be a live event in Chicago. It'll probably be small, but I suspect there's actually a lot more people who are going to want to go than we're even planning right now.
You suspect it's going to be small because?
Well, no, we're planning for it to be small just because we don't know if people are going to be prepared to travel, and we don't want to be too sort of crazy in our planning. But I have my own personal feeling is that it will be oversubscribed. I think we're all desperate to get back in person and really appreciate our community that we've created together, because it is an amazing industry. I think back to my career. I started working in 1987, and Joe Cardini is I worked for him as an intern, and now he's the CEO of Bristol. And there's so many more, but the people I've known for well over half my life now. It's pretty cool. So I really appreciate the community even more than I realized because of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's so cool. Sue Carey says, looking forward to welcoming you to my city of Chicago, Andrew.
I'll see you there, Sue.
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? Doug Gallardo says, I'm good for $200. Good job, Ben. As always, congrats, Andrew. Again, all the best to both personally and professionally. Doug, that's awesome.
Doug is somebody I knew back in my early years too. I think I was in Des Moines like 25 years ago when we first started talking.
That's incredible.
Cool.
Doug, your 200 turns into 400, so that brings us from 800 to 1,200. We might need to get EY to do the math on that just to certify the results. But I think we're at 1,200 so far. Does anybody else have any final commitments they want to put in the comments? Let us know. I'm going to just hold Andrew just for a moment longer on this. As you're talking about community right now and seeing each other again, hopefully in the fall, do you think that, because people are asking about ERC, people ask me all the time about ERC in the fall, and we don't really know what's going on. We know that there's going to be an event. Hopefully that's what the plan is, right? Do we know if it's going to be kind of like a typical GWS like we've seen in the past? Is it going to be like corporate only? Is it going to be some sort of a different variety? Has there been any kind of conversation about what it looks like?
A lot of work has to be done still. So I don't, okay. And I don't know all the things that the team at ERC are planning, but I wouldn't think it's going to be corporate only. I've heard Lynn say, try to keep it around 400 people. And even have some fun if we can manage that with some outdoor activities and things that we can do together and maybe smaller groups. But we've also sort of really focused in on content and really sort of deep learning in a new way that we haven't always done at these kinds of events, so that people can go away and actually apply what they've heard readily at their home offices.
You know, that makes so much sense because I've been on two planning committees for ERC conferences. And the question is, you're sitting in that room in DC trying to figure out what's going to be on the schedule is, you know, who is the audience? How deep is this? Is this a Relo 101 course? Is this a master's level course? How deep do I go? I don't want to be over people's heads, but I also don't want to, you know, be pointless, you know? So that's always been a hard thing to do. So I think going deeper actually is really valuable.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. That's good feedback.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did have two questions just because I want people to donate more. We got any more donators out there? I'm going to give you a big shout out if you do it in the next 2 minutes.
We should have done the math. We should have held out on the total.
Oh, and not done the math for them. Well, there's still double bucks out there. You know, get these matches, man. Get that employer match out there. All right, let's see here. We've got a couple. I have two more questions I saw here. I wanted to get to Viva from the Netherlands. Will EY have any expats left coming out of the pandemic? Will people still relocate within the EY global organization?
And the answer is yes. So we have not had any short-term assignments, and that accounts for about half our volume. So our numbers are down substantially, but we have a pipeline of several hundred expats who are waiting to go for borders to open up. So I'm convinced that we will still have a lot of mobility. And the other thing I talked about, this more mobility for younger people. The two obstacles in our organization, one is money. So there isn't a lot of money just to give people a really interesting experience. We do want to invest in our people, but you can only invest so much. So we have to find a cheaper way to do it, but also the resistance to give up precious resources. So if a partner has an engagement and they've got people firing on all cylinders and somebody says, oh, I want to go have an experience somewhere, that partner's very reluctant to give up that resource. So we're doing a swap. So people can pair up and go sit in each other's seats for 6 months, 18 months, and the partner's going to love it because they're getting a resource back who can also support the engagement. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that type of mobility where we weren't able to do that before.
This isn't one big elaborate game of pass the trash, though, is it, Andrew?
No, absolutely not. No, Pat, that's long gone.
I'm just kidding.
That's funny. That 30 years ago, that was sort of how you got rid of people. Send them on.
Like, what do we do with George? I don't know. Send him to France. Maybe we'll get something good back. Oh, I'm just kidding. I know there's only good people at EY. Actually, my cousin Katie works at EY in Dallas. Cool. She's fantastic. Has great things to say about the company as well. Andrew, that's pretty much everything I had. But I wanted to leave you an opportunity just to kind of give us a final thought and put a bow on this wonderful hour that we've had together.
Well, yeah, I'm so bullish on this whole industry. We've been through the ringer, but I think we're coming out stronger. And we just have to, don't ask for permission. Just bang on that door and go right in. Be brave, and we'll just keep having fun.
I love it. You heard it there. Just keep banging on the door and have some fun. I love it, Andrew. Spot on. Phenomenal talking to you as always. Can't wait to hopefully see you at ERC GWS.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I look forward to that.
Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for all your comments and your questions and your donations. We've raised,
thank you all so much. Holy cow. That was very unexpected. Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's an honor and a privilege. Thanks, everybody. Check us out tomorrow. Tessa Boone from Ford will be here tomorrow at 4 p.m. And then we are announcing the ARC CEO, ARC Relocation CEO. It's a big surprise on Wednesday. Nobody knows who it is, not even me, which has made coordinating it really difficult. But it's going to be amazing when we finally do it. So we're just going to keep banging on the door, Andrew. That's what we're going to keep doing. That's
very good.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you being here. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Take care, everybody. God bless. Have a wonderful day.